CCRU Writings. Review of CCRU's Digital Hyperstition by Iris Carver and Linda Trent. Digital Hyperstition is where the countdown runs out, cross-hatching into horrors anticipated since before the beginning, ciphering a positive unbelief that both crazes off into the latest thing and reanimates contacts older than anything imagined. Its skin crawls out of cosmic gulfs where even the old ones remain unborn, and arrives as year zero, Teotihuacan, crash of science fiction. CCRU's recent volume on this theme is a rigorously unbelievable exercise in hyperpunk pulp occultism and dark side cyber jargon, splicing chunks of an impending calculus into fake memories of hell. The evident cybergoth contamination throughout suggests that it has been spawned in crypt-connected hyperlink labyrinths, beneath and between the net. A positive unplace lurking beyond the threshold where the remnants of Earth's damned hominids, whose gods are lying monsters, shorts out into an anthrobotic mixed mash of burnt silicon and terminal screams. This is a toolkit for dabbling in the dark. The issue here is cyber hype, but now that the human race is virtually dead, it's time for a preliminary excursus on the true history of the CCRU, or for something vaguely like it. Obviously, it's a horror story. At least twice in Outer Time, their numbers were immeasurable, and their name was Legion, masked as an acronymic. Underneath lies CCRU, Crypt Denizen, the many within itself, that which spreads to the end time, dripping fake ID tags like phosphorescent slime. It makes a peopling machine on the hyperplane, conjurations of identity, hypersonas. Consider the names on the contents page. Melanie Newton, Steve Goodman, Ron Iglash. We doubt it. Even Dan Barker discovered that his existence was a fiction, and Echidna Stillwell is more an ethnographic legend than a social fact. In any case, fact means invention, and person means mask. At least if Latin etymology is to be believed, or meaning still matters. In truth, even Cecil Curtis was already branded by CCRU infection, and his social disappearance was an emergence of another kind, a vector. Through him, through his name, the Ma got out of their own tribal codings, or into the Okumenon, and compared to that, what the history books tell of him counts for nothing. If for us the Ma, the death of the Ma, designates also the death of anthropology, it is insofar as it indicates that all primitive peoples are fictions, or masks, and that they ritualize this fact for themselves in advance of any anthropological metafiction. The primitive comes last, at the end, which is cyber-hype techonomics. The so-called new economy, indexed by the Nova Bubble mania of the American stock market, is no different in its diagrammatic abstractions to the hyperstitious practices of the plateau of Leng, relics of lost Lemuria, from which the bone sorcerers of ancient Tibet assembled their dread cult. Alan Greenspan calls it irrational exuberance, amidst a panic hunt for crash indicators. Lemurian Necronomicon calls it shadow feeder of the chaotic gulfs, the fatal mother of hyperstitions, she of innumerable numbering names who shreds all that stands. Whatever or however it is called, cyberhype libidinally invests its own semiotic, propagating fictional quantities, tagging artificial agencies, and making itself up as it goes along, while it's dissolving production into cultural synthesis. As it gets cheaper, it gets harder to stop, running away off itself and into abstraction catastrophe, a self-assembling terrestrial destiny, softening up social reality for the flat takeover by the cyber-hype entity, hyper-seizure. When hyper-cybernetics kicks in, the cyber prefix means nothing anymore. It culturally disorganizes itself into diagrammatic splinters and libidinal triggers, brands, jargons, virus, currency tokens and traffic signals, fragments of marketing strategy gone feral, cyberpunk fictional brands or improper names, markers of meaningless involvement, the passwords of machinic delirium. As for cyber-hype ethnography, American Gothic is the only kind left. a haunted Indian burial ground where sinister shreds of ancient shadow are auto-formatted for the irrationally exuberant post-Puritan pulping machine, amidst the branding iron hiss of liquefied flesh. The 10 most valuable global brands are all American, which doesn't mean anything, since America itself functions as a deterritorialized hype sign or hyper brand, a planetary icon for libidinized meaninglessness. God loses it entirely by blessing America. Coca collapse, a graffiti-tagged advertisement for globalization, which is the end of the world, tracking terrestrial meltdown onto the cosmic flatline. Cancer-bait cowboys of the American nightmare watch mommy glazing over into catatonic schizophrenia as cyberpulp warming slither out of the apple pie. Have you read the Revelations recently? Asked the hot metal imprint of Charlie's Ghost as West Pacific Arcade's mega-clone Chinese Americana and the axiomatic starts to really howl. America is nothing but the West, and that's the land of the dead. No sign here of a new world, let alone a new world order. Much more pertinent is the 00 index of pandemonium, marked by techonomic calendar crash at the end of the second millennium. CCRU is a meaningless brand name, but brands are demonic, turning into cyber height dynamics, numerizing culture and innovating methods of propagation. Various things latch onto them in order to spread. These latchings are sorceries, involvements, participations, spirals of contamination, and the darkest sorceries are calculations, decimal deliria like Y2K, except that nothing is like Y2K. Y2K, whose name is a dating number, is no contradiction, because it has nothing to say. It is an outnumbering in itself, preemptive commemoration and commencement of 0 occurring exactly on time. In the crypt they write of Yatuk, the long-awaited, scheduled from before human time, the non-one who comes soon, and when it comes, or before, all hell breaks loose, or breaks in, beginning in advance, trafficked around the immunocompromised Euconomon, under the decoded brand particles of 2-digit dates. According to the Lemurian system, whose principle is sheer immanence, these subcodes call demons, which are brands, jargons, and triggers, positively instantiating the meaningless of their own designations, infecting cultural systems with unbelief, and counterposing sorcerers' involvements to magical powers. They are raw factors of abstract disintegration with no organic properties but only names, numbers, functions, and traits, the partial semiotics of eccentric intelligence agencies, or unlife animalities. Yatuk, singular cyberspace shock, who is the end of arbitrary signs, leaving only demonic trailings in its wake, even before. Yatuk, she who names the end at the beginning, she whose issue is cyber hype, and is thus announced everywhere.